Republicans. I'm sorry, back to the Democrats.
Right. I'm committed to having a Democratic majority and doing what I can to do that. And yes, I've never voted for a Republican majority leader. That's never happened. And so.
But you haven't voted for Andrea Stewart Cousins, right?
But to be pinned down on voting for a specific member a year in advance, that's just not a good policy.
Don't bust your ass.
The majority Democrats, whoever
Democratic leader, that's something, yes, I would love to see that day, and I would support a Democratic majority leader, absolutely. But we've got to get the numbers first, and that's something that we have to make clear to listeners, to the voters in New York, to the people that care, that, hey, right now, the Republicans have the majority. They have 32 votes, and that's something we can scream and yell about it, but at the end of the day, the people of New York State elected those members, and that's why, yeah, you're right. The governor should call a special election as soon as possible so that we can fill those spots and have more representation in the Senate.
Let me just be clear.
We have a majority. Yes.
Let me just be clear on what you said a minute ago.
Move your ass, man.
Made some news. Are you saying if the Democrats take the majority in the elections of 2018, that you will not vote for Jeff Klein for leader, who represents, who is the leader currently of the 8 breakaways? You would vote for the mainstream Democrat leader as majority leader?
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
I would vote for a Democratic leader, yes. Who that leader is, hey, that's yet to be decided. But to say that we're going to start picking the leader today before elections even happen, before this session even happen, is kind of is not a smart policy decision to do. And that's something that we have to say, hey, the reason why I am an independent Democrat is because, yes, I'm a Democrat. But at the end of the day, we can't follow blindly one party. We have to make sure that we're working together to get results for our community. Hey, in Rockland and Westchester County, we've got some unique issues. And that means that we can't just sit at the sideline and yell. The best way that we can resist some of these anti-New York policies is to work together and get results, move forward where we can. And we've been able to do all
right
that.
in front of me.
Have we achieved
bastard.
everything that I want? Absolutely not. Do we have to compromise at times? Yes, we do. Our government was designed to not just have one person just dictate and just get everything they want. It's about sitting together in this diverse state with just geographical differences, with religious differences, ethnic differences, to say, hey, we've got to take a little bit of each and listen to each other and work together as best as possible. And that's how we're going to overcome and move forward and have a great future in New York.
But in this quest for unity and working together, if you're contributing to the Democratic Party, not even working together as a unified bloc, on this potential power sharing agreement, and then I'll move on from this. But why should Jeff Klein, who represents only 8 Democrats, get a seat in
slide your ass,
people in a room system? He would make it 4 as a fourth wheel, equal in power to the mainstream Democratic leader who represents more than 20 Democrats.
Look, we should have more people in that room. That would be great. We have to work with the system that we have, and that's what I'm trying to do, to say, hey, how do we move our agenda forward? How do we work with the system that we have to get the results that we need? Look, a lot of these rules, the New York State, were made way before me or you were around, and we have to work with the system that we have. Is it beautiful? Is it pretty? Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Can we continue to make it better? Yes, and that's what we need to focus on, and that's what I'm committed to doing. I mean, the governor talked about reform. We really need to get these issues done. We've done a lot, but there's a lot more to do. Banning outside employment, I think that's a smart move in the right direction.
Assemblywoman Heinemann, I apologize for ignoring you for a few minutes, but about 3/4 of my calls are, why is Carlucci still with the independent Democrats?
Right. I understand.
You know what I want to ask you about? You and I have talked previously about transportation, with your seat on the Transportation Committee. What do you think about the governor proposing a new subway line to Red Hook?
So when he talked about the zone in Manhattan, and it was really ambiguous. And then he talked about the Red Hook, and I know the mayor has that initiative where they're talking about the out tram or whatever that thing is. For someone who lives in Southeast Queens, Brian, for me to get to the studio today would have been next to impossible, taking a bus and a a train to get to that part of Manhattan. So it's like, does that area need one, and other parts of New York City not need better transportation? Southeast Queens, Northeast Queens, we would love to have our railway line, our subway lines extended, or even give us parity on the Long Island Railroad, that we don't have to pay as much as someone coming from Long Island when we have stations right here in Queens and Brooklyn. So I think it's to say that for that part of Brooklyn, which has changed tremendously. Let's be clear. Red Hook is not the population it was 20, 30 years ago. It's changed so much so that there are demands for better transportation. But to say that for one part of the city and not for the others that is historically transportation deserts for so long is very unfair. And my constituents constantly, when we talk about transportation, especially congestion pricing, make it to, when I go to these civic meetings, they do not want to hear about being asked to pay more to go into the same city. They feel like it's another tax. So it's not fair to talk about transportation for one part of the 5 boroughs and not the other boroughs that are historically disadvantaged.
His congestion pricing proposal would be to help fund the MTA. Do you have an alternative proposal for that?
I think that they have to talk about how would that benefit my constituents in this part of the world who drive the city. A lot of them are union members who go into the city early in the morning to make the city move. It's not fair to put it on the constituents unless there's some kind of parity, like if the railroad, or the governor talked about the technology they have with looking at license plates. If there's a license plate that's odd or funny, the troopers get that information instantaneously. Why can't there be some kind of device in the Easy Pass? If you live in Queens and you're going into the city, you get a discounted rate than whatever rate they're about to propose to put on the backs of the constituents in this part of the borough.
We're just about out of time. I want to get from each of you what your number one legislative priority is going into this session that runs basically now through April 1st for getting something important to the state out of this whole laundry list from the State of the State address, which can make people's eyes glaze over, or even something else that's just your number one priority. Assemblywoman, want to start?
Well, he said a lot. Let's be clear. The DREAM Act, sexism, homelessness. It was really a great speech. I felt much better going into it this year than my first State of the State 2 years ago when I felt like it was marching us. But if I had my number one priority is transportation for Southeast Queens, which has for decades been neglected. It's time to really push this forward with congestion pricing. That Queens is not neglected in whatever comes out with this proposal that the governor has.
Senator, your number one from your perch in Rockland and a little of Westchester?
Well, there would be so much, but number one would be reconfiguring the tax code to make it fair, and at the same time being able to increase our commitment to public school education. We've got to increase foundation aid for our students. I think that's the best way right now we can move forward to secure an excellent public education throughout New York State. But we've got to be creative in how we find the funds to do that.
State Senator David Carlucci, State Assembly Member Alicia Heinemann, thank you both so much for coming on this day after the State of the State address.
Real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much, Brian.
Brian Lehrer on WNYC. Stay with us.
50 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., people are still in the streets protesting injustice. I'm Jamie Floyd. Join me and Brian Lehrer for A Dream Deferred, WNYC's MLK Day celebration at the Apollo Theater. Together, Dr. King. January 3 is free. RSVP at WNYC.org/events.
Support for WNYC, Charles H. Board for New Jersey. January 9th, 6:30 p.m. Details at WNYC.org.